But now we find that there are certain things or certain types of transactions, unfortunately, that are prevalent in our society, wherein we may feel that there is mutual consent, but unfortunately, there is no mutual consent. Mutual consent is basically non existent in that contract. And that is why that is not permissible and that is not halal. And this is something that we need to be very careful about. So, just to give you certain examples, we start with a sale or a trade. So, basically, when we are trading, when we are buying something on the roadside, a normal person, a layman, from the hawkers, obviously, negotiation or bargaining is not a problem. That is fine, you should do it. That is a part of trade. But to do it in such a way that I have the upper hand and the person, the other party, will somehow or the other be manipulated to basically accept, even though they do not want it. So now we find a person buying or taking something from a supermarket or a brand. Obviously, we will not go there and negotiate, because that is, for especially for retail customers, that is out of question. That is something that the seller does not entertain. But on the other hand, when the sellers are so-called from a lower section of the society, we find the local hawkers. So we tend to negotiate or bargain in such a way and in such aggressive manner that many a time it seems that we are forcing that price upon that person. And here, because of the difference in the social status, we find that there is a type of a pressure on them. And that pressure is something that is very dangerous, because of the hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. لا يحل مال امرئ مسلم إلا بطيب نفس منه. So it is not permissible for any person to take part of the wealth of his brother or sister without that mutual consent, without that consent from him, without that happiness from his heart, that desire and this comfort. If he is not feeling that comfort, not the desire to enter into that transaction or to verbalize that transaction, and he is being forced or manipulated in any way whatsoever, then to take benefit from that commodity is not permissible for you. To give you like an example with regards to the bay, in the same way, we find examples with regards to gift. So we have a gift, something which is very prevalent in our society. So there is a type of force, a type of, in other words, pressure that somehow or the other, basically, it affects mutual consent. So one is that is coming from a certain individual, but this pressure is sometimes coming from society. So there are societal norms that, because of that, a person has to do something or feels that he has to do something, and that is why that would not be permissible for the people to partake, and that his wealth will not be halal. And one good example is, especially in the case of marriage, the feast from the girl's side. So from the Sharia perspective, the girl's side, the girl's father does not have to partake in any meals. He does not have to give a dawah. But now what happens is, due to the social pressure or pressure from the the groom's family, they have to entertain a certain amount of people. Many a time it happens that the groom's family stipulates that, okay, there will be a thousand people coming from our side. There is something that you will have to accommodate. Now, this pressure, obviously, if he was, he had the choice, he wouldn't have done it, because he is doing it because of his daughter. His daughter might not get married. The same way, that something that is called jahez, or dowry, the giving of dowry, the girl's father does not want to give that amount to the groom's family, but he has to give if he wants his daughter not to be pressurized, and if he wants a smooth transition of the marriage to take place. So this is basically a social pressure coming from the society, and that is something that is influencing his consent. He is not comfortable with that, but he has no choice. And hence, it would not be permissible for people to partake in that. So this is something wherein we find that pressure, when it comes from society, that is also an issue. So much so that if we look at it, that a thing that is basically an act of reward, charity. If charity is also done in a way wherein the donor is pressurized into giving, then that is also something which will not be fruitful and not be permissible for the institution to take benefit from it, to utilize it. So there are many, methodologies and tactics adopted by certain institutions, and may Allah Ta'ala forbid, there are certain institutions, Dini institutions as well, who adopt such strategies wherein the donors are forced and they feel cornered. They don't have any other choice, and then they have to give something. Many times we find that there is a different kind of pressure, and that pressure, I would like to term it as situational pressure. Now, situational pressure is something wherein the seller or one party is in an urgent need or requirement of disposing of their asset. So basically, they require liquidity for whatever reason. There is a person sick in the family, or a surgery needs to be done, or someone needs to travel immediately, a large amount of money which is required. Now, such people are generally exploited. So now they have an asset, a real estate. Now, obviously, that real estate, the buyer might know, and also knows properly, that what is the market value of that asset. But because they know that they are in an emergency and they have a pressure, and they have to either sell out at a very short notice, and that is when we tend to take benefit and to exploit that, take advantage of that. And in such a case, if a person buys it with a great difference in the actual market value, then rest assured that amount or that commodity will not be permissible for him. Because had he a choice, the seller, if he had a choice, or if he had the time to wait, he wouldn't have sold this. He's just selling because he is helpless. Because he is helpless and he has no other choice and no way to go. So taking benefit of that, taking advantage of that, definitely includes such a transaction wherein mutual consent is not present. We find in types of ijara, the employees. There are employees, there are certain countries wherein the employee rights are there and are being executed. And practically, there is something that they can get back to. But many a places, especially when the employees are from foreign countries, they are not locals, you find there is lots of exploitation going on there. Because they know that this person is from not from this country, is from outside. He has no other choice. He has to work here. Or he is facing some visa problems. He cannot go back to his home country, at least now, and he has to work. And so they will make them work for the most minimum wage, and then one person, he will be taking work of around 4 to 5 people. And this is something which is happening. So this obviously is a total no, because ijara, you're taking the services. This taking the services, it has to have mutual consent in there. Or at the time of the contract of ijara, it was signed, the job description was highlighted. But once the person starts working by you, there are times that 8 to 5 or 9 to 6, but then the employer demands more than that, which was promised at the time of executing the contract. But the employee is not in a position to say no. Obviously, he is not agreeing to that. He's not comfortable with staying overtime without receiving any benefit. When it's time for the shift to end, that's when there is a great number of activities and jobs that are being given, so that deliberately they are delayed when going back to their homes. Obviously, this is not something that is Sharia compliant, and that will not be beneficial and not be halal for that person to take and to benefit from. Many a time we find that this particular thing is in marketing as well. Here in Mumbai, recently we found a very great so-called real estate company. So they made a very big tower, the size skyscraper tower, around 70 to 80 floors. And the entire marketing USP was that this tower has a direct view of the sea. And this is the reason it was sold at a premium price. After the selling of this entire tower, after the sale was concluded, that same builder, the same developer company, built another tower just adjacent to the first tower, blocking the view. And automatically, around 1/3 of the price was reduced. The people who bought it, they felt cheated. But when they were approached, they said it's just a marketing tactic. So the point of sale, that all that view that you were marketing, that was totally baseless, because he knew from before that there is another tower that is coming up, which I have to build. But strategically, that tower, the work for that tower, the second tower, was delayed till the sale of the first tower got concluded. Obviously, this is not permissible at all. We find that such examples wherein these contracts we find during our day-to-day lives, these examples that we find also in munakahat, in nikah, in annulment of the contracts, also known as iqala, also the contracts of sulh or settlement, dispute resolutions and settlements. We will find that anything that is leading to the elimination of mutual consent, that will be basically that will eliminate that contract itself.